Welcome back to All Elite Reviewing, the only podcast that covers everything All Elite Wrestling, Dynamite, YouTube, Being the Elite, ancillary shows, Twitter, all of it. If there's anything that you don't know about All Elite Wrestling, we're here to tell you, and we're here to tell you whether it's crap or whether it's great. I'm Josh Starnes.
And I'm Shameek Ghosh.
And it has been another week of All Elite Wrestling, which is, I won't say that's the best thing we can say about it because there were some really interesting things this week, but we are still stuck in the world of NBA playoffs. And damn all you NBA fans and your need for your playoffs on television that has sent Dynamite off to the middle of the night on Friday when nobody watches. And so we're getting some very weird shows to boot, and it's keeping Dark and Dynamite so far apart that I can barely remember what happened on Dark by the time Dynamite comes around. I liked it much better when they were just a few days and I can go bam, 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 and everything is stuck close together, especially when storylines are clearly leading from one episode to the next, which is the reason you need to be watching both Dark and Dark Elevation. It makes everything better. And this week, we definitely had some storylines leading all the way to Dynamite, but we also have storylines building on their own within Dark and Dark Elevation, which, you know, is showing us what's happening in the mid card, what's happening in the undercard. And this is where you get the taste for that you're just not going to get on Dynamite. The biggest one happening on both shows this week has been the slow oncoming and now here breakup of Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss as a tag team. I still don't know if they ever actually had a tag team name. I thought they should have called themselves the Jersey Boys or something like that.
I have two of the shirts. Jersey Boys would have been one to talk about, right? Because Taz loves to bring up as from Jersey. And also, like, they're one of the, 75% of the wrestlers are from that area, basically New York, New Jersey area, it seems like. But we had more Sonny and Joey stuff. But I think their name was actually Sonny and Joey because I had two of their shirts.
I think that was it.
And Joey on them. So
I don't think they ever came up with like a tag team name. It was just Sonny and Joey.
No, you think it'd be something with a Rose, like a Bad Boy Rose or something like that.
Something like that.
Just Sonny and Joey is what I always heard about.
They never did. But now I guess they never will, because as we have seen the last few weeks, Joey has not been there when Sonny needed him. He has been off at the Go-Go Clubs with Alex Marvez.
The Nip Factory. That's very specific about that name. It must be like a rubber nipple factory or something like that.
I don't know. We've got to get made somewhere, I guess.
It's like they have go-karts. That's what it sounds like.
There was a really, after some extra, there were multiple different segments about this on Dark Elevation where Joey was getting Marvez to go off with him again to go back to the Go-Go Clubs, and then Dark, where Sonny Kiss and Dante Martin had a really good match. Kiss is coming along.
Went over. That's what I was surprised.
That didn't surprise me as much. He's more of a project. He has been consistently higher up the card. Top Flight has been consistently higher up the card. They would probably be. If Top Flight were together as a tag team, I would expect to see them.
Sure, but since his partner's been injured, he's been kind of on this losing streak going on, just like being fed to people, basically.
No, I mean he's probably about 50-50. He's just been in matches with a lot of the higher up the card guys who are more experienced, and I think that's been mainly to give him more in-ring experience because they want him to be a top of the card guy. But definitely he's also had plenty where he's gone and beat guys. It's not been
I like his finisher a lot. I thought that was really good. It's like an aerial stunner. I thought it was really good.
Something like that. Yeah. And so this didn't surprise me. This is this level that Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela are at is probably as high as they'll go in the company, which is fine. They're having matches and they're getting angles, and I liked it. But this is, if anybody remembers, this is a story that goes all the way back to Double or Nothing 2020. When the Joey Janela Sonny Kiss tag team was formed, and now is all over.
Yeah, and I thought it was funny that he was trying to like put it on Marvez.
He was
it's
so hard. Immediately, as soon as Sonny,
like, let's go back to the factory.
Well, it was weird in that we've been expecting this for a while, and after there was a whole Joey and Marvez bit on Elevation, I thought, oh, maybe they're just going to do these forever. It's going to be weeks and weeks of these, and then Dark comes along like, nope. Sonny storms right into the middle of the promo, spits out a promo of his own, and he's like, "That's it, we're over." And then Joey, being such a jerk, immediately tries to pin it on Marvez and take no responsibility for anything. It was hilarious. I laughed. I'm hoping
that was pretty funny.
That this is the beginning of a heel turn for him, because I suspect he will be much better registered and probably get more actual TV time as heel Joey Janela than as baby.
But do you think he's going to feud with Sonny? Or it doesn't seem like they are. It seems like they're just going to.
They need to. They can. I think they'll just drop it and they'll have him go feud with someone else. I don't know.
Yeah,
he hasn't had a lot of luck in that department. I mean, he had the best one he had was in 2019, early 2020. He had a ready-made one with Kip Sabian.
Right, because of Penelope Ford. Yeah,
and they didn't do anything with it.
They should have. That had potential.
It had potential, and from what I've heard. Yeah. He's still injured, so he's rehabbing. He had to have shoulder surgery, so we're not going to see him for a little bit. And there will be something to be said about that when we get to Dynamite. What I had heard was that Janela himself didn't want to do a Kip Sabian feud and was against it for a while. And
that's funny. Too close to home, or what?
Yeah, that would be my guess. But when they finally got around to doing it, yeah, right. When they finally got around, no, you ain't. When they finally got around to doing it, it just sort of it's nothing. It was a nothing. So it's just been in a couple of different ways bad luck for Joey. So I suspect he'll feud, but I suspect his feuds will be mainly on Dark or Elevation.
Right.
Who knows?
Kind of like what he's already been doing, really. Yeah. It's just the singles heel. Yeah.
Well, JR took one look at him and said, "This guy's a heel, so maybe he can work as a heel. So maybe he'll get more luck that way. We'll see." There were some other big events. Mostly we got the usual squash and showcase matches, giving you a lot of looks at the people that they're either on Dynamite or they're going to clearly have something to do with them on Dynamite. Sean Spears got a good solo win against Falco, who I like. I like his look. They made it a squash, but Falco can actually go on his own, and they should do some more stuff with him.
So Falco, whenever this guy comes on, I'm always like,
all you're thinking about is I thought you were going to start talking about was it the Rock Me Amadeus song? Tony Khan is out there buying 80s music for entrances, so if he ever gets signed,
right, you're already
right there
already.
Yeah. But you had another Julia Hart squash, so they're building her up, which makes sense because they were also advertising, as we will get to. She had a singles match on Dynamite with the returning Penelope Ford.
I did not know that she was 19. That's like she's got to be the youngest person outside of -1 in AEW.
I think Dante or Darius are also 19. One of the Martins is also 19.
Yeah, I think it's Dante.
I can't remember which one. I think it is Dante.
Yeah.
So they got some young people who with a lot of skill who need some ring time. That's a really interesting spot that she's got now for someone so young, but she's making the most of it. So they were doing a lot of building up for this week's Dynamite, which is what these shows are for. So you got some solid wins from Orange Cassidy, solid wins for Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, because they have their handicap matching up. In fact, the best, probably I thought, not my most fun, but I thought the best, one of the two best in-ring matches I saw on either shows was Scorpio Sky versus Alex Reynolds.
That was surprisingly good. Yeah.
Yeah. They're both good. They're both good.
Yeah, they're both good workers. It's just that Reynolds hasn't had like any type of real story with just him. But Silver's supposed to be coming back soon, so maybe that'll.
So they say.
Yeah.
And he hasn't had like the opportunity to really go. And this one gave him a chance to do that. So you get to really see what they could do. And they were competitive. They went a long time, had a lot of back and forth. Ethan Page got the same with Danny Limelight. Limelight's had a lot more time to show what he can do. He's a very good guy, and he and Ethan Page got a lot of time. It was a showcase for Ethan Page, but they still got a lot of good time. Kylan King got a showcase match. Gun Club so they're doing a lot of stuff with Colton and Austin. Don't be surprised, I think, if these are the people that we see pretty regularly on Rampage when it starts.
Right.
And, prepare yourself. Although it hasn't been, like formally announced, I'm pretty sure this is what's going to be. But Tony Khan, basically released, this is what the taping schedule is going to be on Wednesdays. Shows will start at 6. We're going to tape an hour of Dark and Dark Elevation with fans, then 2 hours of Dynamite Live, and then an hour of Rampage with the same audience. So 4 hours. So prepare yourself for August 18th. I think we're in for a 4-hour show of getting both Elevation, Dynamite, and Rampage all in one sit down.
I'd rather do that
cannot
than
wait.
I'd rather have that than, basically it being split up into two dates, or even worse, just having like half the show in Houston and half the show in like Dallas or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, there will be periods where they do that. They said they're going to go live for Rampage on pay-per-view dates and they'll do it in whatever city the pay-per-view is going to be in. And I think they're going to do it there. I don't know if it's a live. I think it is live, but I know they released this week the announcement for the first show in the initial Rampage is going to be in Pittsburgh, where they're going to do both Dynamite and Rampage from Pittsburgh, but it sounds like they're going to do both of them live so they can have a live Rampage for the first one.
Okay, interesting. I have some friends in Pittsburgh. That'd be fun show to fight to.
Well, they got Britt Baker all over those posters because that's their hometown. So expect.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
win
Pittsburgh.
Twice.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, right.
Got two really good matches from the Acclaimed. This seems to be. I'm certain we'll see the Acclaimed. When we see the Acclaimed already, plenty on Dynamite, and I'm sure we'll see them a lot on Rampage. It's always
okay. So the Acclaimed, when they went into their little rap thing, I was kind of like, first of all, I think Max Caster's sexually assaulting Five with these.
I think lyrics. So too. I felt that way.
And like he's like, we're gonna tag team you if you know what I mean. And I'm like,
I laughed. I laughed.
Very sexually aggressive.
You'll never see the real Max Caster stuff outside. This is, that's watch YouTube because you're not going to get, the filtered Acclaimed on the internet. Not at all.
Right.
There was also quite a bit of build up to the Orange Cassidy Wingmen matches. We got several video packages from the Wingmen with Peter Avalon, who hasn't gotten to speak as much. Ryan Nemeth's really been the voice guy.
Funny you say that. That's exactly one of the notes I made. Was like, hey, Nemeth has been talking a lot more than Peter lately. I wonder if they're kind of making him the leader of the group. I mean, almost de facto, just because he
felt like it.
Yeah,
and wrestles more, and he and Cesar are really the ring guys, which makes sense. And then to a lesser extent, JD Drake. So I was, pleasantly surprised that Avalon actually got some stuff. And actually got to be in the thing, and it's building up to. I will have something to say about this. The we're going to make you pretty like us match on Dynamite, with Orange Cassidy, which is as strange a thing as strange as it sounds, is as strange as it is in real life. And then we had the other thing building to Dynamite. Before we jump into it, my two favorite matches on Dark this week. Obviously, the thing that they've been pushing the most, even though it wasn't the main event, is going to the Wardlow versus Jake Hager MMA fight in a cage. Right. So they wanted to make sure they didn't just give Wardlow wins, because Wardlow gets tons of wins, but
it's a kind of wins they give.
But they gave him not just a squash.
One with a knee knockout, a knee strike knockout, and on Darky one with a submission standing. Yeah. I think it was like a standing front headlock.
Well, he even said he was going to. I mean, Elevation opened this week with Tony Schiavone and Wardlow says, tonight I'm going to knock the guy out to show you I have knockout power. And tomorrow I'm going to choke the guy out to show you I can do that too. Anything you can do, I can do better. And don't think you're just going to walk all over me in that ring just because, you've been in a bunch of MMA matches. And then he did exactly what he said he was going to do, including the great knee knockout to poor Chandler Hopkins, the guy that got blackouted to death on Dynamite by Lance Archer. And now his follow-up is a great job getting thrown around like a rag doll by Lance Archer. Now we're going to let Wardlow drop you onto his knee as hard as he can.
And the next two he has are Brian Cage and Miro.
And then he was never heard from again. Pay your dues, man.
So I think I took some of Chandler Hopkins off my shoe there.
he wasn't after. I mean, that knee strike was. I mean, I know that's been Wardlow's thing, but I don't think I've ever seen him put him up on the post and drop him before. But Hopkins sold a great. Like, he wasn't quite as boneless flat on the mat as the guy Will Hobbs power slammed to death. But it was like a close second.
He never had a choice in the matter. His bones were just going to be pulverized no matter what happened. Pretty much. Can act like it or not. That doesn't change what happened.
But this was like a close second. This is the second most dead person that I've seen on Dark or anything AEW.
Melted bag of bones.
Yeah. And that just leads us right into this week's Dynamite. And I thought, because of the way they were going to push it, that Jake Hager and Wardlow would be the main event, because they were pushing it like it's the main event. Now they have been, for good reason. They've been putting really their best match on first because the show's starting so late on Friday. But it opened with Jake Hager versus Wardlow in the cage
with Jericho in Jake's corner and
right.
Shawn Spears in Wardlow's corner, which I thought was an interesting choice rather than MJF.
Well, it's good that they. Well, I mean, we'll understand why later, but also gives Shawn Spears, some FaceTime.
And, I think that's mainly what it was
and
about.
I think that helps a lot too.
Yeah.
But then it became immediately clear why they had to do this, because they took out the ring and brought in.
It was a realistic setup.
I felt like very realistic setup.
Yeah.
And so it's very clear they could not have done that within the show, and so that had to be their first or last, and so do it first.
Oh, good point.
And probably had to tape it separately just because it's a completely different setup. Otherwise, everybody's wrestling in an MMA cage for the entire show. And I've heard different people that there were split reactions to this. People
I heard the same thing.
I will say, for my sake, I loved this. I loved every minute of it. I have been wanting something like this in a pro wrestling show. I couldn't get enough of it. And I thought it was fantastic. I thought now you couldn't do, you have, with something like this, you have basically two options. You do this is what your show is, and every match is like this, and you're basically doing work shoot, MMA wrestling stuff all the time, or you do it every so often, once in a while, so that it maintains its very special feel. Last year, in the depths of the pandemic, when Ring of Honor returned, they returned with this very unique format with the pure tournament, where it was done not quite in rounds, not MMA style, it was still pro wrestling, but it came in with very specific set rules of things you could do and couldn't do, and you had to wrestle according to that. You only got 3 rope breaks, no interference. Anyone who interfered in a match got fired. There was X number of things you could do. They treated it as very realistic competition. They did very realistic competition video packages before each match, had everyone come down just a regular match. They had like a little counter on the bottom showing you how many rope breaks, so that and the strategy played into how they laid it out. The matches tend to do like this, where they start out with like a lot of mat wrestling and then transitioned into pro wrestling moves, but it wasn't just high spots all over the place and spots all over the place. And I loved that. That was one of my favorite things that I saw last year. I actually voted for Delirious as like my second choice Booker of the Year last year for coming up with that. They don't do it all the time, but just watching it was great. And when I was watching, I was like, I wish one of the big shows would do something like this. I don't think WWE ever will, because it's too outside of how they see pro wrestling. But AEW should try it. I didn't think they maybe ever would, because they have so much stuff coming off the indie scene. But I have been reading Tony Khan's been talking about how he's gotten to know Dana White very well, because Dana White's been like, UFC's been apparently across the street from them for a lot of shows, where Florida was the only place they could run. And so I think he's been bringing, the way you can see now how they brought that in. The very realistic presentation, coming down, checking that fighter's hands, the doctor check, the Vaseline coming in, breaking it into having cornermen. They broke it into rounds. It was 3 5-minute rounds with an actual stop, and everybody to get water and rest. And they stayed with it for the whole time. It opened the way an MMA match opens, very slowly. Everyone's checking their distance.
Yeah, the pacing was very well done as far as making it realistic to an MMA match. Yeah,
exactly. It felt like that. There were a lot of leg kicks, the occasional punches before getting into like real grappling with takedowns, and went through a round break, and then as it moved towards its finish, you started to see it move into Jake Hager stayed in MMA style the whole time, while Wardlow started to break out of that and started to hit pro wrestling moves, because that's what he knows, because he's a professional wrestler. Right. So he hit a Hurricane Rana, and he did a Superman punch off of the cage, and
he is very athletic for the match, that's for sure.
He can really get around a lot. This was his best match by far.
The thing that I'm not going to say that I loved it, because I'm always going to prefer wrestling matches to this. I'm just going to get that out of the way. I'd rather see them wrestle than do something like this. But that being said, if you remember back in the day, WWE used to do this type of shit with boxing, especially Butterbean. They used to always get him on.
Well, they had like one specific thing they did with where they did the they did an actual shoot tournament, which was terrible. That was
terrible. It was awful. And it doesn't. This was a lot better in the sense that, like, first of all, I think MMA is just way more interesting than boxing. I mean, that's just my preference, and I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to do an MMA match, they did a great job.
Yeah.
I still prefer a wrestling match, But if you're going to do an MMA match, they did it well. They did it very well.
They definitely should not.
I was definitely interested. The pacing, it got a little slow in the beginning of the second round.
That's what's great. That's what it's supposed to be.
In MMA match.
Yes.
So that's fine. And then when they got to the holds and then everything, and then I was like, okay, this is actually working. So yeah, I liked it.
And then it turned into.
But I liked it for what it was.
And then as it went along, it turned into a pro wrestling match, which is what it's supposed to be.
Right.
They actually, I know I dunked on WD a little bit, but around the same time, actually predating like the Brawl for All stuff a little bit, when Ken Shamrock came into WWE the first time, they actually did do a lot of that, and there were a couple of guys who, because they actually did do a lot of this stuff in Japan in the 90s. There were quite a few places out there that was.
Which is funny because the Japanese wrestling style is so stiff on its own that it almost like indistinguishable from like actual MMA.
Well, a lot of people have thought so. It turned out that is not true because there was a long period where they tried to do something like that, and boy, did that almost kill Japanese wrestling. But there were some, but there were some promotions, Japanese promotions, that did do a lot of like work shoot stuff. And I haven't watched any of Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, but they say that that's a lot very similar. And so I might go and check some of that out now, especially now that John Moxley's on it a lot.
Did you say Bloodsport, like the John Claude movie?
Yeah, that's what he calls it, and I'm sure exactly for that reason. And but Shamrock did a few of these that were with Owen Hart and Vader. And there was one he did with Vader at a pay-per-view that was like this but better, because those guys were both better workers than Hager or Wardlow, and but it was just like, it didn't have the rope breaks or anything. It didn't have the round breaks or anything. It was like, but it was the same way. It started out slow with Shamrock doing leg kicks and finding his distances. And
calf kicks, right?
Calf kicks, yeah, calf kicks, and then and doing takedowns and grappling as it went on. Vader kind of stopped with the MMA style and switched to pro wrestling, and he was doing moonsaults and Vader bombs against triangle holds and arm bars and stuff, and it was fantastic. And but you got to have guys who can do that sort of thing.
Right,
these guys
exactly.
can both do it. And I agree. I don't say I would prefer pro wrestling. I would say that this is just a different way to do pro wrestling. You don't want to do it all the time unless that's what your promotion is. And
right, but if this worked very specifically because Hager's actually an MMA fighter,
exactly,
right? So,
exactly.
It doesn't work with it works with Shamrock because he's an MMA fighter.
Exactly, but if you do it every so often with the right guys, it's great. This was the best thing I saw this week. I loved it. I would
say the best thing on the show
is that they do. Oh, it's by far the best thing on the show.
Yeah.
And I hope they do it again. I hope they don't do it again soon, because you want to make sure when they do things like this, it's like Blood and Guts or Stadium Stampede. You want to make sure it's special when they do it, but I definitely want them to do it again.
I'm never going to complain if it sets up an MJF Sammy match. So, yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is then, of course, at the end, it turns directly into pro wrestling, because as soon as it's over, Hager and Wardlow almost have a fist bump of respect, and then everyone's piling in. Sean Spears is coming in and hitting, and then Jericho's coming in and hitting, and then we find out why MJF wasn't the core man, because he was hiding in the crowd the whole time, like the loathsome scum that he is, to come and put Jericho's bad arm into his salt of the earth Fujiwara armbar. Which is exactly what it needed. Okay, we've done the MMA. Now let's hit the pro wrestling and get the angle and get things going and keep this up for the next round, because this is just the first of several Pinnacle versus Inner Circle matches. So we want to make sure everybody's looking forward to the next round, which is
because they even had like an AER powerful kind of segment where they were talking about how much they you can't forget that these guys are also
some great promos. So, but they let Sean Spears and Sammy Guevara have their moment, because they're going to have the next one. But they also let Guevara call out MJF again, as it seems very clear that we're ultimately building to a Sammy Guevara versus MJF one-on-one that's going to be the blow-off. That's what it seems like. And usually when they do what it seems like is most logical, that's what they do. So I'm hoping that's what they actually do.
You say you like the FTR Proud and Powerful promo, but there was a certain point where I was just laughing in spite of myself, because it almost seemed like they're trying to outpour the other person. They're like, oh yeah, well, I live on the tracks. It's like, yeah, well, my mom's head fell off or something like that. Like some shit like that. And I'm just like, guys, just come on, you're both poor. It's like, come on, and you're both not now. So let's fight about that, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Everybody's like, I had a harder upbringing than you. Nobody did. I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta get something going on out there. Are you having a thunderstorm over there? What on earth is happening?
It's not raining by you?
No, nothing. It's sunny and bright. I can turn my camera around. It's just pure sunlight coming in my window right now.
I guess I don't know which way it's going. So get ready, or maybe you sent it to me. I don't know.
All right. But actually, how unique that this match was also something that I was thinking about as I was watching it, especially over the next couple of matches. It was just, in a lot of ways, it felt like this was a very weird episode of Dynamite, but also in a lot of ways it struck me that this is a perfect exemplary episode of what AEW is. Because on this show, you had an MMA style work shoot cage match, and you had an indie style, just as goofy could be, best friends versus wingmen match.
Yes.
And you had some classic, literally classic WWE stuff with Matt Hardy versus Christian Cage promo stuff.
They locked him in a cage.
They locked him in a cage.
Irony, right?
Exactly. And
Brian wasn't there though, but Christian was in the cage.
Exactly. And they should have had him in a cage. The cage is in a cage. It
writes itself.
And then you had some more, not indie hijinks, but very AEW style TNA ROH stuff with the Ethan Page, Darby Allin handicap match.
So you're saying it's like a stylistically like
it's just like you would talk about everything, anything and everything you could think of in wrestling was here, and that's what AEW for me is. It's not just this is the one style. And then I would say the last match, the 8-man that turned into a trios match, was in a lot of ways was basically a lucha match. I mean, Pinto was the only luchador in it, but they basically worked this as a lucha style match to the point where there were no rules. There were just people.
No, I mean that all, but there's like everyone breaks down. I thought it was funny that Don even was talking about the ref. He's like, "Ref, don't you ever handle what's going on there?" I was like, "Don, they never do." What are you talking about?
But we'll get to that. But yeah, it was what I like. Anything you can think of that you like in wrestling, AEW has something for that. It's everything. Right. It's they don't have this view of this one thing. I mean, really, the only thing they didn't have on this was like a super stiff Japan style match because John Moxley isn't
right. But I guess you got to fly somebody in for that.
Okay, you got to fly. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they will. Or they've done style matches like that, and I'm sure once stuff is open, they will do a lot more matches directly like that, and want to do more matches directly like that. Yeah. But it's it's a little bit of everything. The other thing
wasn't the old WCW like that? Because I always heard about that. How you
in a lot of ways, that's what I've always heard about it, especially when they had like a lot of AAA guys and a lot of New Japan
like Ultimate Dragon and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And Yuji Nagata and all of that. Well, and that was apparently Tony Khan's show when he was a kid was Nitro. So a lot of what informs modern Dynamite is what he liked about Nitro. Not like the downside of Nitro was that only seemed to be true for the undercard, and then when you got to the main card, it was just the 2 or 3 top guys who wouldn't do anything and wouldn't get out of the way, and nothing ever evolved. Which so far, Dynamite's doing a really good job of trying to avoid, like the main lesson.
Exactly, they're trying to keep a lot of people fresh, so that's good.
Yeah. But I was really, now having said all that, I was also really confounded by this show because I expected Wardlow and Hager to be the main event. And then when that went on first, after I got over my surprise, I'm like, well, actually, this thing I was most looking forward to, so I'm glad to get it first. But what in God's name is the main event? It must be Darby Allin handicap match. And then that's the second match. So then they come I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, wait, this is second.
These are the weekend basketball shows. So like the order's all weird, right?
Yeah, the order is so weird. As soon as
it's an inverted pyramid.
Almost. Exactly. Yeah. It's very much the inverted pyramid. But then it's like, as soon as they're coming out, I'm sitting there going, what the fuck is the main event? They're doing everything first.
Like, oh, good brothers.
Which I had just forgotten about. But
I think you can see more normal booking of these cards like when you get back to Wednesday shows.
Well, probably the next Saturday one, which is going to be Kenny Omega versus Jungle Boy for the title. Right. I firmly expect that to be the main event, and that will be. And Saturday, they've done Saturdays before with with good results. So I think they'll probably run Saturday like a normal thing.
Did you notice on that Kenny Jungle Boy segment? When Kenny was going away, like
that was great. It was so great.
From Inspector Gadget, he said, "I'll get you next week, Jungle Boy."
Well, next
week.
I was thinking more like Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man movie, where it was like, "We'll meet again, Spider-Man."
No,
it was very much like that.
I'll get you next time, Gadgets. Next time.
I didn't know if it was a specific cartoon. I could tell he was very. I love that. I know some people that one has gotten mixed blessings. I mean, it was obviously intentionally literally a cartoon villain, but I laughed. So, well, first,
yeah.
I've heard some people knock on Jungle because Kenny Omega comes up to Jungle Boy to tell him he'll give him a free shot, and they don't let Jungle Boy speak very much, and when they do, he's still kind of flat and monotone. It's really the only weak point in his game is his promo, which
Right.
he needs some more work on. But
just a little more like character in his voice.
Exactly. He needs to like something. I've heard him do good ones, but he just he needs more time to do it. He doesn't get a lot of time to do it because his first year he was the nonverbal character who never spoke.
Right. So like you raised in the jungle, no one didn't know how to talk, that type of shit.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it took a long time for them to let Darby got over hardly ever doing promos either. But then once they let him start doing them, he could do them really well.
And he got better. I didn't like his first couple of promos that much at all, but like now they're pretty good. So yeah.
So I think he'll get there. But Jungle Boy's going to finally go for it. And of course, he gets whacked in the back by that dastardly Michael Nakazawa with his laptop.
Right, with a clipboard.
No, it was his laptop.
Take him out.
It was his laptop. Even worse, he broke a Dell laptop on his back.
So much malware.
Exactly. But I know some people
are all up in that.
Some people didn't like this for being too cartoony and too much comedy to build up to a world title match, but I laughed so hard.
I mean, it's Dawn and Kenny, so there's always that kind of element to it, right?
It's always
like cartoon villain type of chick going on.
Which is fine. He's a cartoon villain. Let him be a cartoon villain.
Exactly. If it works, let him do it.
When he kicked Nakazawa out of the cart and left him behind, so they sped away. And then he does the cartoon. I'll get you next time, Jungle Boy. Next, and it's perfect. They're speeding away, so the sound is decreasing as well. So it's more like next time.
I'm telling you, that's just straight up Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. That's what he was doing.
I laughed so hard.
So I was like, "What? Is he actually doing that? That's hilarious."
Is he really doing that? This is hilarious. I know some people don't like goofiness, but it's the great thing about it. We had the super serious MMA fight, and then you had some of the goofiest goofy shit you can imagine. The only thing goofier than that was Orange Cassidy versus Cesar Bononi, who started this whole match because they don't think Orange Cassidy is stylish enough and they want to make him over. And this is about we'll get back to Darby Allin in a second, but this is a good segue because this is about as Indian match as you will ever see on a nationally broadcast TV show.
It's a fun feud. They're both fun groups that are, I think it could be. This is a program I want to see continue for a little bit.
Well, it just makes me think when I see, because especially the point where, if you didn't think that this match was goofy enough, and they're clearly high on Bononi, and they want him to get they think that maybe they could do something with him if he can get more experience. So they've been giving him a bunch of matches. But,
I see the potential.
It's possible, but every time Orange got kicked, it was like the weirdest lumberjack match of all time, because every time he got kicked out of the ring and fell into the hands of the wingmen, they wouldn't beat him up. They would start to make him over. They put a jacket on him and some gel in his hair and put a spray tan on him.
I have to beat the crap out of the guy, but I don't know.
It was like, no, we don't want to beat him up. We want to make him look better.
Right. It's like make you pretty. It's like Christian had a move called the unprettier. Yes. It's not the point of wrestling. That's the point of backstage makeup.
It's what feuds with the best friends are, which is fine. It worked with Santana Ortiz. It worked with Hangman.
I'm totally okay with it. And I like almost everyone involved. Even JD Drake has started going back to dressing goofy, which I'm like, don't do the serious ring gear shit. That's not what we're here to see.
Make him look goofy. Exactly. And it really worked. And then at the end, Orange wins as he should. But not only does he win, he kills Cesar Bononi dead. Peter Avalon runs into the ring, cradles his head,
like Mother
and
Mary
just
holding
starts
Jesus.
Going, no!
I was like, Michelangelo could have sculpted this scene right here.
It was like the Pieta, but with
that's what I'm saying. It's like sitting there going like, oh my God, he's like Jesus off the cross, and you're married. That's what's going on.
Expected
but a good visual,
was the camera. They should have had the camera right over him while he does "Con" like William Shatner. It's like the only part that they could have played it up just a little bit more.
Yeah. That was good though. It's a good visual. These little subtle things that don't like. I think just like like the Inspector Gadget reference, this type of thing. Where I'm like, does anybody know this is the Pieta like right here that we're looking at? Like the subtle reference.
This was the goofball Pieta, but
yeah.
I loved it. It's weird. I know there were people going like, this should not be in professional wrestling, and I'm sitting here going, no, this should absolutely be in professional wrestling. Well, there were some people hated like the Debonair and stuff like that. So yeah, that's same difference. This is what professional wrestling can be.
What did Jim Cornette think of it? He hated it, I'm sure.
He hated it. Well, like he and Brian Last, like every week they say this is the worst Dynamite I've ever seen. So after you say that 15 times in a row, it just feels like, well, you'll never like anything. So what does it matter?
Right.
Like, he hated the MMA fight too. He thought like after the first 2 minutes it looked fake, so he hated it. I'm like, I don't know what show you're.
I thought they did a good job making it look real, actually. But
I did too. I thought they did a really good job making
it look. I was surprised at how it really made it look.
The only thing they liked was Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page versus Darby Allin handicap match.
Yeah,
and I agree. This is the way a handicap match. The only way I would not have liked this is if Darby Allin won. Because it was good. It was good.
But it's a heel move. But it's like, I guess he's surmounted.
Darby's a tweener.
Brian Cage for the title. He tied his 2 feet up.
Darby Allin's always been a tweener. He's always having to think out because he's small, and when he's by himself, he's got to think outside the box.
That's I'm confirming. That's the gimmick, right? Like he's just scrapping, do whatever it takes to win.
He's literally. I mean, it couldn't be more. He's literally a man who paints half of his face as a skeleton. He's like he paints half of his face as a skeleton, and half of him as a face. He is literally in between. Half of him is a bad guy, half of him is a good guy. But
we should hear about that.
But have we not made it clear enough? Yeah. But the only way this would not have worked is if Darby Allin had gone over. At one point, I was afraid maybe they would do that because he is actually higher up the card than they are. But no, they played this exactly right. They made both guys look like monsters. They gave him a lot of heat. They let him have a really good comeback. The zip tie thing was a good way for him to have a comeback, but and let Ethan Page come in and take over. And then they let Ethan Page have the win, which is the one they need to, because he's the one with the longest term real heat with Darby Allin. They can turn that into with or without the.
But what does it do for Darby Allin? Like, what happens now?
I don't think it does anything. Well, I think it's a continuing feud. I think this is one of the ones where I don't know where the next
storyline wise. That just confuses where it just goes.
Well, I think he realizes he can't do it on his own, and he has to with a partner. I think the partner will be not Sting. I think he's going to be like, okay, I realize now I can't beat you, so I am going to take you up on an offer of a tag match with someone other than Sting, and they use that to elevate someone. The question is, who do they put him with?
Johnny.
No. If they are smart, they use this as a way, because Darby is now in a position where he can elevate guys. Just being in the ring, losing won't hurt him, and being in the ring with him will put a spotlight on someone who hasn't had it. So they should be finding someone who's on dark. You can look at it and go like, it won't be Lee Johnson because he's firmly with the Nightmare family, but it needs to be somebody.
Please, get away from him.
Lee Johnson like. Maybe they will. I don't know.
They took Scorpio Sky from SCU, right?
That's true. So they could, Sean Dean, one of those guys, one of these guys who's been on dark a lot, who could use the shine to get some elevation. Well, not after this week's elevation, unfortunately. I can't wait to talk about the Ryzen match from this.
Oh man! All right, well,
next week.
Okay. Well, that gives me something forward.
I'll tell you, he's in a tag team match, and the tag team he's facing is Shawn Spears and Wardlow.
I love it.
It was great. I want to see that tag team. They need to bring that Shawn Spears and Wardlow as a tag team on Dynamite. I would pay money for that.
Well, in your circle, then you could do that, right? Because the other two were basically FTR, and then you have MJF. So why not?
Exactly. So let's see. So now we've done what I thought were the two obvious main event matches. So that didn't leave a lot. We had some more promos. Had the sit down with Andrade that they should have done the first week, but we finally got it, and that was a great sit down.
It felt like the Miro talk, in the sense that when after Miro broke off from the whole game over, like the game thing, and he was like, "Well, I'm just going after any title, whatever I want." And the kind of
turned out to be true. That was true, but they and that was true. And I think in some ways it's because I think they did a little bit of the same thing with Brody Lee when he came in, and some of it's for these when we're talking about these ex-WWE guys who left because they were a little bit who left because they weren't getting the push. They were like, I'm a great guy, and they weren't doing anything with me. And we've seen how well that's worked with Miro. I mean, Miro is more over now than he has been in his entire career. And this was a guy who had a WrestleMania match, and Andrade, Andrade is a world class talent. And the best guy in CMLL. He was one of the best guys in New Japan, and they should. And you see, he's carrying around his La Sombra mask from the CMLL days, and wearing it a little bit. I'm wondering if he's going to wrestle masked or wear it around the ring. And the one thing they didn't do was, they teased the reason that he's with Vicky Guerrero. They obviously mentioned the Eddie Guerrero connection, which you have to, especially
right. We figured something like that was behind it,
but they didn't explain exactly, just that they have something up their sleeve. Usually AEW does not say something like that if they do not actually have something up their sleeve. So right. I am hopeful. I'm fairly confident that they do, and we're going to find out something good. And I'm going to assume that whatever that something good is better than Vicky Guerrero in a tag match with Nyla Rose against Britt Baker and Rebel.
Why not just do a DMD Nyla match? Instead of putting Rebel,
because they don't want to do that one yet. I mean, that's obviously the program is Britt Baker and Nyla, so they don't want to do it yet, but they got to do something. But why this? Not this.
Yeah, why this?
Put Rebel in a match with Nyla so she can get squashed or something. I don't know, but it is very rare.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Nyla's going to kill Rebel, right? That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. That Vicky's going to sit on the sidelines and cheat, but hardly get in the ring, and then kill Rebel. That's what they should do. But it is very, very rare for AEW to put together a match for me to sit there and go, no, thank you. I have no interest in seeing this, but I have no interest. I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to fast forward. I'm going to watch it, at least partly out of morbid curiosity, but I have no interest in seeing this.
Well, hey, at least when your bars is set so low, maybe if it's actually kind of passable, then you'll love it.
Before, I've been surprised before. They haven't. The
one Johnny gets involved. I don't know.
Maybe a lot of the ones they've had where the bar seemed set low, they weren't matches where I had no interest in them. Some of it was just morbid interest. It was like, can Shaq and Jade Cargill do a match that won't be a train wreck? And turned out yes. So but that one I was definitely interested in that match. This one I'm just like, I don't know what kind of train wreck it is. Maybe
it doesn't help anybody's story.
It doesn't help anybody. I feel like we're just setting ourselves up for another Big Swole versus Rebel versus Britt Baker versus Penelope Ford. That doesn't do. Penelope Ford's been digging herself out of that hole for 6 or 7 months.
And it's starting to feel that Dr. Britt is starting to almost force the heel stuff she's doing.
Yeah. Maybe they feel like, they feel like she can't be hurt by this. And they're probably right. She probably can't be hurt by stuff like this, but that doesn't make me happy about it, and definitely doesn't make me see more of it.
Right. Well, at least there's other good matches that night. Yeah. We'll just have to grin and bear that one.
So we also had our next big piece of Hardy Family Business, as he continues. He has multiple feuds going on, but he wanted to point out that he did not want Christian Cage getting involved with his business the way he has been, and he was willing to pay him off to get him to leave AEW after locking him in a cage of emotion.
Right.
And this was a very
his name. Yeah,
exactly. This felt like a very WWE segment, which was fine. I don't hate WWE. WWE when it's good can be really good, and these guys can do good WWE about as good as anybody can. They've done it about as well as anybody ever has. So great, more stuff. Still getting the slow dissolution of Team Taz.
Yeah. And so Brian Cage wasn't even in that promo segment this time.
No, this is all about Will Hobbs.
Ricky before they went to Hobbs version.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, they let Hobbs
got to talk
the longest forever.
He got to talk. And he's got a story. And you're like, okay, so that whole thing with the tag match last time wasn't just that, but it's a story, because now they get to build up that Team Taz, you guys abandoned me. Ricky, you drug Brian Cage away and left me in that ring by myself to get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
And
but fuck you, Adam Page.
You didn't beat me. It took 2 of you. Let's see you take me on like a man, one-on-ones. Now we're gonna get that match, which I think is gonna be great. This is what you should be doing with your new young guys. I've been invested in Will Hobbs. I
Yeah,
am
me
more
too.
invested in him with every one of these bits they let him do. He talks. He can. I was kind of wondering what his mic skills were going to be like, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, man, am I hearing him talk? Like,
I mean, he has a couple of times, but this I think was the most, and it was pretty good. And there's only a few things he can do in the ring, but he's getting better each time. But there's also really only a few things he needs to do. He's a big giant. He doesn't need 5,000 things like Brian Cage. Just let him go up and power slam somebody to death over and over again.
10 times in a row.
Will be 10 times in a row, and it will get over every time. People will sit there. You'll hear 10,000 people in stands counting to 10, and they will love it.
Yeah, people love chanting and counting. I mean, chanting. Any of a wrestling movie, you can do a count to it. People will love that shit. Yeah.
And if his body slams, I mean, it's one thing. It was just like punches in the corner, but if his body slams over and over in a row, oh, people would love it. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be an excellent match. And they are slowly, that you saw Adam Page, answered it, and they brought up the fact that Adam Page is heading back towards being number one contender.
Right. Well, they brought it up, but he deflected it.
And he's like, oh, I don't want to talk about it.
I'm not their leader, but I'm kind of am. Whatever.
They made some big mentions of it on BTE this week. That they both Matt Hardy had another really great Christian Cage promo where he actually had the crumpled up check that Christian Cage threw at him and said, you could have had this, but now you get nothing. And it was really, really good. And then you also had a very long, as you always do, an Adam Page Dark Order skit where they went on a bad trip from bad drugs, and we got to see all of their individual hallucinations. And Adam Page's hallucination was his hallucination was the AEW championship on a pedestal, and Dark Order was leading him to it. So I think we've been talking about this for almost 2 years now. All Out is the next pay-per-view in September. I think maybe it's finally going to be time. Adam Page versus Kenny Omega at All Out, and they're going to put the belt on Adam Page. I'm calling it now.
I think that's what we're heading to. I mean, I think they've done the segment without building up to that. It's like the Chekhov's gun thing, right? You don't talk about that without actually building up to that. So,
Well, I think they want to lay the groundwork a little bit. And also, I think they're going like, we're not going to have Adam Page on every single Dynamite, so we're not going to be mentioning it every time. But they've also got it's 2 months, so it's 8 weeks now. It's what, 9 weeks.
We need to carve out time for a tag match with Big Rebels.
But it's 9 weeks now until All Out, and it's time to build. And people have forgotten the time where you might spend 2 months building towards your pay-per-view, or in this case, near 2 years, basically 2 years. By the time it happens, it will have been 2 years they've been building to this match. So it will be very interesting. Yeah, I think I've heard of it in a couple of other places. The only thing they could do bigger than that at All Out would be to bring Kota Ibushi over from New Japan and have a fight between the Golden Lovers. And I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think it's going to be possible. So this is where they need to go. And then that leads us. No, I would say to our main. It actually led us to our women's match that we get once an episode.
Penelope Ford, right? With Julia Hart, which I haven't seen Penelope Ford in a while, and I was surprised that she went over.
I was too. I was very surprised. I was sitting there because they're pushing the Varsity Blondes, they're pushing Julia Hart, and there were a couple of things that I came out of this while I was watching it. And I like mixed messages. Because on the one hand, I was like, well, who's going to go over? In theory, Penelope Ford is higher on the card, but Julia Hart's getting the push right now. And if they really want to push like the whole Varsity Blondes act, it makes sense to give her the win over. And Penelope Ford, and generally, that's what her role has been, is to give a bigger win to someone who's.
And no one's going to care if Penelope Ford loses.
Right. It'll be just big enough that it makes it feel like more than something worthy of Dynamite and not like an elevation match. But they didn't. They for the first thing, and I was kind of wondering about this. I was actually really into this was going because while Penelope Ford's been gone, she's actually added to her arsenal quite a bit. This was not the same as a lot of the Penelope Ford matches. When I generally
like her and Karanas and handstands.
Yeah, they're kind of cookie cutter. She has like 4 or 5 things that you expect to see. And this one, she had a couple. She did one of her handstand flips into the corner elbow because she does.
It was a very much more ground-based game that she's using.
A lot more stuff. Yeah. She didn't use the fisherman suplex. She didn't use the backwards bend into a cutter. She used she won with a submission, which I don't think I've ever seen her do a
No,
submission
never.
before.
Yeah, that was surprising.
So they went. She was very heelish. So she took a lot of the match. She was very heelish. It felt like they were pushing her to be a pushed women's heel, which the women's roster needs. I mean,
but you already got like Bunny's doing a great job of being a heel right now.
She doesn't get to wrestle that much. Maybe if they wrestle, they have a lot of baby faces. They actually probably have more women baby faces than heels.
Yeah, I would say so too.
And I think the main reason you don't get as many of them get as much TV time is because they don't have as many heels to wrestle.
Because even like some of the Dark Elevation match we didn't talk about, a lot of them are actually face women.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think part of this also is they want some more women heels for Rampage. That was going through my head, and that's a good space to have some more of those. But also the heel women, the heel women they don't want to beat. They can't beat and aren't going to beat Jade Cargill. They aren't going to beat Britt Baker, and they're not going to beat Nyla Rose, not easily. So you've run it. But even before you get to the people who are on the cusp,
you want to be as low as like Danny Jordan or anything.
Exactly. You want them to be facing people who it feels like a victory. But Thunder Rosa needs someone. Red Velvet needs someone. Kylan King needs someone. Big Swole needs someone. Big Swole needs someone, right? They can beat Abaddon fine, but they need some more people who more heels to wrestle. That it feels like a big deal when they beat them.
Still there, right?
Sheeta needs someone to wrestle.
Right.
They can't all be wrestling the same 4 women.
What happened to Rio, by the way? Did she go back to Japan?
She went. No, she's back here. So she had to go back, but she is now officially moved back. She moved, so she is here permanently. That's why she was able to do the match before Double or Nothing. We just haven't seen much of her, but I'm sure because
no, I'm sorry, not Rio.
Rio Mizunami went back. Yes.
Yeah.
Rio Mizunami went back. I expect that she will come back. I expect we will see more of her, but she is back in Japan.
Yeah, I heard that Rio had actually moved back. Yeah.
So they don't have like a huge number of Japanese wrestlers who are living here permanently. I think it's really just Riho and Shida are the 2 who are living here permanently. And a lot of the others are still in Japan, so it's still going to be probably a matter of time before they can come back and forth.
Okay.
Who knows? We'll see.
But is Rio in the mix then? Because then she's another face that needs.
She should be. So that's somebody else who needs. So and they're all going to be having matches on Rampage. So they need some heels. That feels like it's worth. And
that's where Cody comes in, I guess. She comes back at some time to be the heel, and I guess go over there. And I guess the thing that also confused me because I thought Miro didn't like.
Well, this was the thing.
To break himself off from that.
No,
but then he did not just to save Penelope.
Well, he said, when he beat up Kip at the end, he said like, "We're still best friends." This was a good lesson. So maybe he just needed.
I know what he said, but what he did also.
But this was the other thing I felt. I'm watching this match and I'm going, wow, they put Penelope over. They're giving Penelope like a push, at least to keep her in the mid card, maybe just in the bottom of the upper card as a heel for the upper card, to have a heel for upper card women to wrestle, which is good because that gets her TV time. So it's good they're doing something with her. I didn't think they were going to. And and Chris Statlander. We're talking about all the babyface women. Who's Chris Statlander?
Right.
There's like a ton of them. But
maybe this match was just to set up the next week match with Brian. Brian Pillman.
So I'm like, they're doing all. I'm like, okay, great. They're giving her a push up the ladder, and then Miro comes running out, and this turns into just an angle to set up. At least they set it up, and it didn't come out of nowhere. But they set up. We're getting that Brian Pillman push, which they should be doing after that dark. And we said it after that Dark Side of the Ring segment. They should definitely be giving Brian Pillman Jr. a push. People know who he is. He is probably the best part of Varsity Blondes. I know there's a lot of Griff Garrison fans. I know it's like there's a lot of people out there who really like Griff Garrison and don't like Brian Pillman Jr. I don't get that, but it feels like Brian Pillman is the guy in Varsity Blondes right now.
Yeah,
maybe Griff Garrison will be a guy like that, but Brian Pillman's the guy who should get pushed. So he's going to be getting his singles match against poor Griff. He should be getting. There is a series. I'm going to send these to you. There's a series of Dark Order sketches around from the Mr. Birdie days around Griff Garrison, where the entire punchline is, "Who the fuck is Griff Garrison?" I'm going to send them to you because they're hilarious.
I heard that in John Silver's voice.
It is. It's they were like one of the first best Mr. Brody things that they did. So I'm going to send those to you. But So they set up the Brian Pillman Miro match for the TNT Championship, which I'm really looking forward to. Yes, give Brian Pillman a really good singles match. Let him get killed by Miro, because that's what Miro should be doing, but give him some hope spots. It'll be great. But then I'm like, well, does that mean this was nothing from Penelope and it was just here to set the angle, or are they trying to do both? Because sometimes they do both. I don't know.
Well, we'll see, I guess. Yeah, we'll see, I guess. It does seem like lately with Miro, they've been kind of giving in people that are maybe on the undercard a little bit, but that are actually good. And like they're like, hey, well, showcase yourself against Miro, like that type of thing.
Well, that's pretty much what the TNT title's always been. I mean, that's what Cody did. Well, he did with a lot of guys who weren't signed by the company, but he gave his guys a showcase. That's what a lot of what Darby was doing. So you got, some space to give Scorpio Sky some spot, and a space to give like he wrestled someone from Dark Order, but I can't remember who it was. I think it was 10. I'm pretty sure it was 10.
I think it was 10, yeah.
Yeah, so they did a lot of those. And now, Mirror's, I mean, that's really what the TNT title's for. It's like the thing we're going to give some shine to people who aren't ready for the main event, the AEW championship match, but we want to give them some shine. And that's
right.
exactly
This is really, I mean, a classic mid-card belt. I mean,
yes,
that's the concept behind the mid-card belt, right? So there you go.
Exactly. And Miro's the perfect guy to be holding that, because he can do that, and then he can kill people and get them over and get himself over at the same time. And it works really well, and he's in just the right role for that. And then eventually, when he's done with it, he can move on and have a main event feud with Adam Page or whoever has the belt.
Yeah, whoever has the belt, the big belt at that.
The big belt at the top.
Yeah.
So and that led us to our main event, and we finally found out, I guess by process of elimination, like, okay, it's going to be what was supposed to be the Young Bucks and the Good Brothers versus Eddie Kingston and Frankie Kazarian and the remaining members of Death
and Penta.
But they had to be changed at the last minute, because apparently Pac had some problem with his visa and had to go back
that's
to
going on.
England.
It seemed like it was weird that only one of the Young Bucks was in the match with the
so,
brothers. The other one was at a board meeting, but
well, if you remember from last week, it was advertised as an 8-man, and then suddenly it comes out here. It's like, nope, 6-man. They did do it. They shot an angle. There was an angle on BTE last week where the same as Nick and Matt laying out Phoenix in the back, so that to show how he can't wrestle.
Apparently, Phoenix does himself all the time. But
so then they had shot a BTE angle where they laid out Pac, and people found them after they beat up Pac in the back, which is explain why he wasn't going to be in this match.
Okay.
So instead we just got a 6-man, which. A very interesting 6-man.
Man, but see, now you told me that, because I didn't know that, and now I'm kind of wishing Pac was in this.
Oh, it would have been.
I think it would have been a lot
1,000% better. The problem was,
right? Okay, because
there were
a little underwhelmed.
Oh no, it would have been so much better with Pac, and it had 2 problems. The first one was they lost one of their 2 best workers when Pac wasn't there, and then they had to rebalance the teams. And their decision for rebalancing the teams was to take out Nick Jackson, who was the other best worker. So in one fell swoop,
that's what I was like, why don't you get the Young Bucks, but like one of the Good Brothers for Doc Gallows or something?
Or just put Nick with the Good Brothers and have Matt, do the shenanigans, so that you have like one guy who can do all the crazy shit that looks really good. But they didn't do that, so you got Matt and the Good Brothers and Matt, and it was good. Matt got to get beaten up on it a lot. He took everybody.
He's pretty good at that. He's really good at facial expressions and everything.
Yeah, I think that's why they picked him. And and Kazarian melded with like that hard crunching style that Penta and Eddie Kingston do. Yeah, and you had like that great bit in the middle where Matt got stuck in the middle, and basically all 3 of the baby faces gave him their finisher back to back to back. Which was great. Mm-hmm. And then of course we had
and I love that Eddie's gone away from doing the big spinning back twist and doing the half and half now for his
half and half. I like the spinning back fist. The half and half works really well for tag team. And singles match probably not so much, but it works really well with his tag team stuff. But yeah, he's been adding in more and more stuff. And Kazarian's always good. But then this whole thing, just.
And this is the first time we've actually seen him wrestle, other than just being the Elite Hunter or something. So I was actually excited to see his role in this match.
Yeah. I'm assuming there will be some more one-on-one feuds coming out of it.
Yeah, that's what I was a little disappointed. I thought it should be more Kaz like trying to beat up more.
I think this is supposed to lead to that. From this we'll get maybe Frankie versus the Young Bucks in solo matches, or Frankie versus one of the Good Brothers in solo matches, or something like that, which would be good. Any one of those combinations would be good. Like
I thought it was sweet when he did the Angel's Wings, like in honor of Chris.
That was great. And then in honor of Chris Daniels, I thought that was
good thoughts there.
Like I knew there was no way they were winning, but right then I was like, oh, they're definitely not winning. But when he got
well, this is it's a dawn match, so it's always going to be shenanigans from somebody on that team for them to win. It's always a fucking aerosol can these days. So that's whatever the hell's in there.
Yeah. It's supposed to be just cold air, but God only knows. But by that point, and people are talking about cheating, but you just start because like this turned into basically a lucha rules match right away. You just had one guy. There'd be occasional tags. Mostly it was just one guy after the other into the ring. You have all 6 guys in the ring at one time.
I had no idea it was a legal man at any
point. No idea. I don't think they even pinned the legal man, but there's no way to tell. And then, all 6 guys outside of the ring, all 6 guys inside of the ring. Shenanigans.
It's just
you're just sitting there. This one of those ones where I'm just going with it. A lot of the time people say that Young Bucks matches in particular are just a bunch of spots with no rules and no psychology, and it's just bam, 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 bam to make you feel something. And that's very much not true. That is not what Young Bucks matches. They wouldn't have gotten where they got if they weren't good. And their matches are really good and have all the things that people say they don't have in them. But this was not one of them.
Yeah, this was exactly
what people claim Young Bucks matches are. It lived up to the.
It looks like everybody was just tired and just like, look, let's just do something and just end this.
Nobody's watching. We've got 10 minutes and everybody's on their DVR because it's the middle of the night. Let's just go home. And
that's what kind of felt. So it was a kind of a weak ending to the show, I thought. And that's what, because I thought, and again, the very pyramid that we're talking about, like it started off great. It just kind of gets, and I'm going to look very much forward to when we get back on our regular schedule and we have regular type of cards going.
Yeah. But it was all worth it for the Wardlow Hager match. Best thing I saw.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Maybe best thing I've seen this month. And that includes the crushing guys with bodies.
I was surprised. I didn't think it was going to be any good. I thought it was going to be just like the WWE boxing matches they used to have. But no, they really made it realistic. And that's the thing that when you said that the criticism is that, people thought it looked fake. And I was looking for it to look fake.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I was expecting that. And that's why I was surprised.
Well, there were 2 types of criticism. And that one was a specific Cornette thing, just because his gimmick is to say everything AEW does looks fake. But whatever. Yeah, okay. No, more what I heard for people who didn't like it were people who were more like you were like, no, I only want pro wrestling in my pro wrestling. Don't give me any of this.
I prefer that, but if you're going to do something else, make it work. For example, if you're going to have 2 people sing and dance on your TV show, it's not going to be wrestling. Make it.
They better be able to sing and dance.
If you're going to go off the script, you fucking go off the script and go really good at it. That's what I'm saying. And I thought they did it. I thought they did well with MMA.
So we say
I disagree with the people who say that it looked fake or that it took away anything from the show. I thought it did fine. It ended up being pretty much the best thing on the card that night.
Would we say this is the inside the ring version of Dinner Debonair? It went way off the normal path, but they made it work.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing that we like, because it's not the type of things you'll see at WWE, because either they're just scared to take those risks or they just don't feel like they have to take those risks. Either way, they don't.
Both. I think it's both. I don't even know if it's scared. It's more like that they have this they have this idea now that that's not what wrestling is. Wrestling is
whatever people are entertained by.
Yeah. I think there's a very specific because WWE's been doing WWE style for so long, and they don't, and it's not like, even in the 80s where it's guys coming from one territory to WWE for a while, but they're still, the Macho Man was the Macho Man wherever he went. Hulk Hogan was
right, exactly. You don't get to own your property. Now they change your name.
Now it's guys.
Lance Archer to Lance Archer to Vance Archer.
To Vance Archer. Yeah, it's guys who come up and and they have to come all the way up in the WWE system, and WWE tries to change them to wrestle the way they want, and they view like this is the only way that wrestling can be, and you can't have any of that horse shit. You have to have the Fiend and Alexa Bliss, and and the Fiend.
There is room for other stuff if you do it well. The problem is when people try this other stuff and they don't do it well is what gives it a bad name.
Yeah,
but we haven't seen too much of that on AEW yet, honestly.
I mean, they'll have bad matches. I am not looking forward.
No, every match is great, but I'm saying when they do these kind of gimmick off like the best friend street fight, that was fucking awesome.
The big swings, with maybe one exception, the big swings work. I mean, they're brave enough to take the big swings, and most of the time it pays off. And I will even claim that I would say 99% of the exploding barbed wire match worked.
Sure, until the end.
It's just the most important. It was only the most important part.
It is the most important part, but I totally agree with you on that. It's just the part that makes a lasting impression, right? That's why Julius Caesar by Shakespeare is always the one who goes last. That's what makes a biggest impression on you. That was the whole point of the play at the beginning. So
right, yeah, exactly. But another episode, another good week. Some there will be.
Yeah. So this week, what do we have?
some
Another
stuff.
Saturday show for Dynamite?
Saturday. So we got like even longer to wait because now it's dark in elevation now, and then now we gotta wait 6 days, and then Saturday for Dynamite, and then back to normal, and then next week back to normal.
Yeah, and then when does Rampage start?
August 13th.
August 13th. So we got
a week,
coming up on just about 2 months, a little shy of 2 months to that.
Yeah. It's going to be here before we know it. So
6 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, next week I think is the first one on the road. I think it's the Miami show.
That's right, the road race. And every their marketing team must be having a great on all these flyers because it seems like every show has its own theme. So
at least until Rampage starts, and they're really showing, and they're starting to hit those commercials hard for Rampage too, which they should.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. Give me more AEW in my life.
Yeah, especially if we go see like 8 hours of wrestling when we go see it live. That's fine with me.
That's what I want. The kids can be passed out next to me, but I don't care. I'll be enjoying all of it. Anybody who's watching that week will think that I only own one change of clothes and I wear the same clothes because I'll be wearing the.
Well, they can't smell you. So that's the best part of it. So
I'll be wearing the same T-shirt on Dynamite and Rampage. Apparently, maybe I'll be smart and bring an extra T-shirt and change it during the switch. But we'll see. I'm not that smart.
I'll probably have beer spill all over mine. That's going to be the only clothing change.
That's fine. I can live with that. All right. Well, until then. I'm Joshua Starnes.
And I'm Shameek Ghosh.
And this has been All Elite Reviewing. Cue the music.